Let's dive right into this explainer and explore the absolutely fascinating, totally dynamic, and honestly, pretty hilarious world of cross-cultural language evolution. Whether you're pulling your hair out trying to conjugate a verb in a classroom, or you're just trying to decode whatever it is your teenager just texted you, language is this living, breathing thing. Today, we're going to break down the mechanics of how we learn, the completely accidental traps we fall into, and how digital culture is literally rewriting the rules of human communication as we speak.
So, what happens when you ask for a preservative in a French hotel? Let's jump right into the high stakes of cross-lingual miscommunication. When we're picking up a new language, we naturally lean on our native tongue, right? It's like a safety net. But man, that safety net can sometimes lead to some incredibly embarrassing traps. There's this great story from a retired American physician practicing his French in France. He heads down to the hotel breakfast room, grabs a fresh croissant, but there's only butter on the table. He really wants some strawberry jam. So, using his best English to French logic, he asks the waitress for some preservative for his bread.
She chuckles, blushes, and tells me she'd be happy to bring me some jam instead. Her reaction pretty much says it all. She giggled, turned red, and very kindly offered him jam. And why? Well, because in French, un préservatif definitely does not mean fruit preserve. It means a condom. So, asking for a condom to spread on your breakfast pastry is certainly one way to practice your vocabulary, but it perfectly highlights a massive linguistic trap that language learners have been stumbling into for literally centuries. Linguists actually call these traps false friends or false cognates. It's when words look virtually identical in French and English but mean completely different things. Une librairie versus a library. And we have the Norman invasion of England back in 1066 to thank for this little puzzle. After the invasion, thousands of French words just sort of seeped into English. And over nearly 1,000 years, the meanings of those shared words drifted apart. So today, you might strut into une librairie in Paris thinking you can borrow a book, only to realize you actually have to buy it because it's a bookstore. If you want a library, you've got to ask for la bibliothèque. Section 2. The journey. The mechanics of mismatched language. It turns out it's not just vocabulary acting as a false friend. It's the fundamental way different cultures view the world. Just think about j'ai faim versus I am hungry. This is absolutely crucial to understand. It's all about how we express our basic physical states. In English, we treat physical and mental states as conditions of being. We say, I am hungry. But French, with its Latin roots, treats internal states as literal possessions. You don't say you are hungry. You use the verb avoir, to have, and say j'ai faim. Literally, I have hunger. The hunger belongs to you. To an English speaker, I have hunger sounds super archaic, but fighting this underlying logic is the #1 hurdle for beginners. You can really see how deep this concept goes with everyday expressions. You actually possess your age. J'ai 20 ans means I have 20 years, not I am 20. If you're shivering, you have cold. If you're frightened, you have fear. And here's the kicker. If you try to force English logic and say je suis froid, using the verb to be, you aren't telling someone you need a jacket. You're actually telling them you have an emotionally cold-hearted personality. And hey, this struggle absolutely goes both ways. Data from Cambridge University Press mapped out the exact traps native French speakers fall into when they learn English. Thanks to those shared historical roots we just talked about, their spelling is usually fantastic, but they stumble really heavily on verbs and what we call collocations, basically pairing the wrong words together simply because they're translating French logic straight back into English. For instance, a French speaker might say, she is a very sympathetic gal, meaning she's a nice person. Why? Because the French word sympathique translates to nice. Or they might say, we passed our vacation, instead of saying they spent it, because they're translating the French phrase for spending time completely verbatim. It just goes to show that mastering a language isn't just about memorizing a dictionary. It's about internalizing a totally different cultural logic. Section 3. The conflict. The 2026 internet slang evolution. Because just as you finally spend years mastering all those tricky traditional grammar rules, digital culture comes along and completely rewrites the entire dictionary. We actually have to treat modern internet terms with the exact same academic seriousness as traditional vocabulary now. Brain rot, for example, was named Oxford's 2024 Word of the Year. It started as a clinical medical term, but internet users totally repurposed it to describe that mental fog you get from endless doom scrolling. It became so dominant in our culture that it won Word of the Year. Language isn't just trickling down from textbooks anymore, it's bubbling up right from our social feeds.
And this new dialect is moving fast, entirely spearheaded by Gen Alpha. Take the word skibidi. If you aren't familiar, it originated from this incredibly bizarre viral animated YouTube series about, well, a toilet. The word itself has absolutely zero inherent meaning, which is kind of the whole joke. Kids use it as a catch-all for something cool, funny, or literally just nonsense filler. It's wild to think about, but TikTok and YouTube are birthing completely new dialects in real time. Now, not all internet slang is created equal, right? These words actually graduate through different levels of society. Riz, short for charisma, and slay are completely mainstream now. You'll hear them in corporate boardrooms and on the evening news. And it's super interesting to note that many of these mainstream hits actually originated in African American vernacular English and LGBTQ+ ballroom culture way before the internet amplified them. Meanwhile, a word like delulu, for delusional, is really only crossing over with the under 30 crowd. And unk, short for uncle, used to playfully mock someone out of touch, is pretty much trapped in the under 25 niche. Section 4, the resolution, the 60-second digital classroom. So here is the big question. If language is constantly shifting and our attention spans are completely dominated by Instagram and TikTok, how are modern educators actually supposed to teach both traditional grammar and this rapidly evolving slang to millions of people online? Well, they do it by becoming absolute master storytellers in under a minute. The viral creator Jenny Hoyos broke down her 60-second digital storytelling formula in a brilliant TED Talk. It's 4 steps. First, the hook, where you ask an extravagant question. Second, the journey, where you elaborate on the answer. Third, the conflict, introducing some tension or twist. And finally, the payoff, delivering a super satisfying, fast-paced conclusion.
She said, if a story takes longer than cooking a hamburger, you're letting it simmer too long. She actually proved this by testing if a fast food drive-thru was truly fast. She brought a raw burger patty in her car and cooked it on a portable grill while waiting in the drive-thru line. She ended up beating the restaurant. But the core takeaway for educators is huge. Online learners demand incredibly fast-paced, highly engaging content if you want them to actually retain anything. When you apply that to language learning on platforms like Instagram Reels, it totally changes the game. Instead of a boring 45-minute lecture, educators are dropping 15 to 30-second micro-lessons focused on just one single grammar rule. They'll do these tight 10-second pronunciation drills, zooming right in on mouth movements, or 5-second rapid-fire vocabulary flashcards. They're keeping the viewer's brain constantly engaged, working with the algorithm instead of fighting against it. And to pull this off at scale, creators are leaning hard into AI tools. By using hyper-niche hashtags like hashtag Spanish grammar tips, alongside platforms like Fluxnote, they can generate full videos with auto-matched HD stock footage from a simple text script. But the real game changer? Word-by-word AI karaoke subtitles. By highlighting the exact word right as it's spoken, learners visually track and absorb the new vocabulary in real time. The data shows this one feature alone boosts learning efficacy and viewer retention by around 30%. That is how you reach millions. But hey, it doesn't happen overnight. For educators building this modern digital classroom, the roadmap is pretty structured. Months 1 through 3 are all about the foundation. You're posting 5 to 7 reels a week, basically just to train the algorithm. Months 4 through 12 are the acceleration phase, where you're aiming to hit that 10K to 50K follower mark. And then by year 2 and beyond, it's all about scaling and monetization, launching digital courses, affiliate marketing, or one-on-one tutoring. It's literally a full-fledged educational empire built entirely on 60-second videos. And this is where the traditional and the digital perfectly collide. Remember that super dry academic data about Cambridge preposition errors? In a traditional textbook, let's be real, it's boring. But give that exact same data to a 2026 digital creator, and they'll transform it into a punchy 10-second visual flashcard with those dynamic AI karaoke subtitles. It makes the dense, boring stuff instantly digestible and, honestly, pretty fun to learn. Language is a living possession, not a static state of being. As we wrap up this explainer, that is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Language is not frozen in a dusty textbook. It's constantly shifting, constantly being molded by the people actually using it. That's true whether you're looking at 11th century Norman roots that created false friends, or you're just trying to figure out how to use Riz and Skibidi in a TikTok comment section today. So, if a medieval invasion and a 2026 internet meme can both permanently rewrite how we speak, what will English look like in another 10 years? I want to leave you with that provocative thought. If a military conquest in 1066 and a ridiculous video about an animated toilet can both shape human communication, what's next? Will AI be generating our slang for us? Are we going to be speaking entirely in 10-second microphrases? Keep your ears open, because the dictionary is being rewritten around us every single day. Thanks for exploring with us, and keep learning.